Hello everyone, this is Tim Frost, Mr. Patience, and welcome to the first of my videos covering the mySewnet embroidery software. We're going to take everything from the start. We won't skip over anything, even though many of the pieces of this software, like its predecessors, use almost the same tools and techniques, so that whatever level of skills you have with Premiere Plus 2, Premiere Plus, or any of the predecessor modules, that you will be able to apply them immediately with the mySewnet embroidery. When you first install your software, you can see that you have mySewnet shortcut on your desktop. I have two. I'll explain why and how I did this. If you double click on the mySewnet icon, it opens up what's known as the mySewnet program group. With this icon right here, if we double click on this, this arrow here means that it's a shortcut and will take us right to the software. This, on the other hand, is a folder, and if we double click on it, it opens up and shows us all of the different modules that will take us right to the modules that are included with the mySewnet Platinum edition of the software. Now, I wanted to go back here, and I wanted to have this so that I could put it on my desktop and then just click on it, and it would be the same as if I clicked on the program group and then came in here and clicked on it. Why do two things when you can only do one if you want? So I came in here and right-clicked, and then came down here to send to, and when I touch this with my mouse pointer, just touch it, these options are available. And I came down to here and to this option that said create shortcut and put it on the desktop. So I clicked on that, and when I did, this shortcut appeared on my desktop. And I put them next to one another because I wanted to be able to quickly and easily reach them. So I'm going to double click here on the embroidery module, and it starts up, and here it is. This is what mySewnet looks like, the Platinum edition, when you first start it. If you have the Silver edition or the Basic edition, then you'll see less than we see here. So when we come in, what we have are shortcuts here to all of the different main functions of the software. Some of the main functions, like this blank canvas, just says, just take me in to the mySewnet software and show me the hoop and everything else that I'm using. This takes us to the Express Design Wizard and so forth, Photo Stitch Wizard, Express Monogram Wizard, and so forth, and the new Spiro that you can create a spiral embroidery pattern and so forth, all the way down here to all the different modules. What's here, these are the different projects that we've been working on, okay, and you can click on them to bring them in. As more projects are added, these fill this area and then scroll off the screen. You can click on these pins. If you click on the pin, that tells it, I don't ever want this to be removed from the screen. But I can click again to remove that pin, and then it will just age off as usual. You can click on Help over here. If you click on Help, it takes you into Help. And Help, in this case, will look like a web page. It goes out to software help at mySewnet.com, as you can see in the little tab there. And My Account takes you to your mySewnet account so that you can sign in or do whatever you need to do there. But we'll presume that all of that's working fine. And what I want to do is click here on Open a Blank Canvas. But what we have here at the top are different tabs, and you can probably recognize several of them, like Home. Create is new here. Encore, lettering, super designs, frames, appliques, embellish, modify, view, and help. And this is not the modify module. They've gone back to the naming convention here. This is what used to be called the edit page. In earlier editions in Premiere Plus and earlier, it used to be called the edit page. When they switched to calling Stitch Editor into Modify, and now Stitch Editor is back to its old name of Stitch Editor. And we'll see that in a much later module. So for now, let's click on Home and see what this does for us. And it opens up the software with the last hoop that I used, the 120 by 120 millimeter hoop, and has everything set to go except there's no design in the hoop. So what I want to do, I want to create a quick design for my grandson who likes airplanes. So what I'm going to do is open this up. I'm going to come over here to File and click on File, the tab to open it. And now it looks like we've gone backwards to an earlier part of mySewnet, and in a sense we have. But what I want to do is go down here and I want to open a new design. Now the open and insert do both basically the same thing. That is, they put a design in the hoop, but when you put open in, if there's already a design there, it's erased and a new design is put in its place. If you use insert, then insert will add a new design into the software. So let's click on Open. And now when we go to click on Open, it takes us into the Open dialog here in the upper left-hand corner. This is a dialog because it's a dialog. The computer's talking to me, I'm talking to them. Okay? So I want to find a design that I want to add to my project here. So I can go down here to Documents. The documents that are listed here in this PC, not the documents that are shown here in Quick Access. We want to go down to this PC, down to Documents, click on that greater than sign, and we can click on the scroll bar and scroll down. And now I'm looking in here, I'm looking to find the mySewnet documents. And when they got installed, this is where it's installed. Just like when I installed my Premiere Plus 2 software, it said I'm going to put some files into a folder that I'm going to name Premiere Plus 2. So I want to go back here to mySewnet and click on this greater than sign. And it says, okay, I also created these, you know, when I say I also created, the software automatically created these folders. It created the mySewnet folder, the My Designs folder, the My Pictures folder, the Samples folder, and the System Backup folder. Well, now, if you click on the greater than sign, because Samples always has embroidery designs in it, and we open that folder up, you see that within the Samples folder, we have Cross Stitch folder, Digitizing folder, Embroidery folder, Sketch folder, and Stitch Editor folder. This is the old Modify module. I want to go into the Embroidery folder because I see it has subfolders, and it does. It has a Photos folder, it has a Pics folder, and a Stitch folder, and extra formats. These are extra Stitch formats that the software will read in but cannot create. For example, the art format from Bernina. We can read those and use those designs, but we cannot write an art design. So if we have a Bernina sewing machine, we can't create an art design that will stitch out on the Bernina sewing machine. But I'll click on Stitch, and it has no greater than sign there, which means there are no subfolders here. And when I click here, you can see I have a number of designs. Now I can click on this right-hand side, click and hold, and drag this down and look at the various designs that I want to go ahead and maybe use one of them. And I'm looking to see what I have. And some of them are duplicated to teach a certain point about the software, which we'll get to later in this series of lessons. This is the Rose small head bright, the Rose small head, and the Rose head, and you can see the density is a little different between these, and that's a teaching thing to go over later in the software in the lessons. And so here's a design. I'm going to left click on this to select it, and it's in selection mode. And if I decided, wait, I don't think I want to use that, I want to use this, let me click on here. Well, then the selection box moves over to here. If I wanted to use both of these, I would have had to use the insert tool and not the open tool. And if I forget what tool did I use open or insert? Well, if I come over here and look in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we're in the open dialog. So I'll go ahead and click on 3 flowers to select it, and then I can click here on open, or I could just double click on 3 flowers to open it. But I'll click on open, and it was open, and look what happened. Embedded into the software is data that tells the software from the design that this design requires the use of the 180 millimeter by 270 millimeter design. That's the size of the design, and it requires this large hoop. And if I look over here on the design panel, the information panel, it's 50,064 stitches. And I don't know if I want to do that. It has 45 color changes here if we look at this. If we touch these measurements, it changes the measurement from metric to imperial. This is 6.5 inches wide and little over 10 inches high. And that's why the hoop size changed. Well, I don't want to use this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to here to open. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to say, I'd like to use a different design, but when we clicked on documents here before, okay, when we clicked on this, I noticed that my Premiere Plus 2 folder is out here. Let me click on this. Let me scroll down here. Oh, there's a sample folder here. Let me click on samples. Let me go down to Premiere Plus 2 EMB. Let me go down to Stitch 2. And let me scroll down here, say, to flowers. Now, here in flowers, I want to look for a nice flower that I can use in the design. I think this fantasy flower. Let me double click on this to open it up. It too requires a larger hoop. Okay, it's the same hoop, 180 by 270, but it requires that hoop, and I don't want a design that has that many stitches in it right now. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find a design that I like that won't require all those stitches. And I'm wondering if this design might work out for me. Well, it has a smaller design, but it's still using the same hoop. But that's okay because I can click here. And as I look over here, I see it's 59.4 by 91.3. You know what? I'm going to switch this over and turn off Enter Hoop Size. And I'm going to go down to Natural, I'm going to go here to the Designer Epic and click here to see all the hoops. And I see the metric sizes of them. I only need about a 60 by 90. I think I'll use a 120 by 120. I'll click on that. I'll click OK. And it's much smaller, and I can see the total number of stitches is only 8,500 stitches, and this is fine for what I want to do. So here's my design. And at this point, if I said, I'm not sure, if this is a stitch file or a project file, a VP4 project file. I'm not sure of that. So what I need to do is come over here to File, and I'll click on File, and now this time I'm going to click on Export. When I click on Export, the Export dialog will open up. And it's the job of the Export dialog to translate this into a stitch file. And here are all the stitch files that we can stitch out with. The VP4 stitch file, and this is the VP4 stitch file. And only certain Viking machines can stitch a VP4 stitch file. Here's a Viking VP3 stitch file. If you're in doubt as to if your machine can stitch this out, then use the VP3, unless you specifically know that it will stitch out a VP4. But if you have a baby lock machine, then you need to use a PES. The older baby lock format is a PEC, and so forth, all the way down the line. Here's an SHV for Viking. This is older than a VP3. The VIP is even older than an SHV, and the Hus is the oldest of all. For the most part, the main difference is that the Hus design, for example, rather than saying forest green for the thread color, as you're trying to stitch this Hus design out on your Epic 1 or Epic 2, the thread color will only show green. It won't say forest green. You can see here we have 3 different green colors here, and I'm not sure which one is forest green, which one is evergreen, which one is something else green. So you don't want to use Hus if you can use VP3. And worst case, if you had like the Husqvarna Viking Rose, which used the Hus, if you tried to stitch out a VP3, it would simply say, I can't do that. The file format is unrecognized. And then you just have to come back here and say, okay, let me try the Hus, or let me try the VIP format, and so forth. The Janome So, this is the older Janome. The Melco Expanded, this is a commercial machine. The FOF PCS, this is an even older FOF format. The Tajima machine, these are for the most part commercial machines, these last 2. So I'm going to make it a VP3, just to be sure. It asks, well, we're going to optimize for sewing. Should I use color sort or optimize stitch length? For the most part, these are the defaults. Just leave them alone. They'll work fine with most of them. The options here we'll go over later in another lesson. There are no decorations in this design. That is, decorations where you would put sequins or beads and such, so that's why there's nothing here. The hoop orientation, well, the hoop orientation is what we see here. It's called normal. That is, when we put this in the sewing machine, the way it looks here is the way it's going to look when it stitches out. Flip design for felting or reverse embroidery. Now notice the leaf is on the left side. If I do that, it flips it upside down so we could do felting or reverse embroidery. I don't need that, so I'll just turn that off. There are no splitting options necessary here because this design fits entirely within this hoop. If I wanted to split the design, this would be enabled. That is, it would appear as black letters, not dark gray letters on the button. And we could click on it. Now, right now, if I click on that, nothing happens. But I'm ready to go. I'm going to click on OK. And it now says, OK, we're going to do a save as. Okay? And the save as is going to be a stitch file. You can see here that save as type, it tells us right here. If I click here, it says there's only one file type we can save it as, a VP3 stitch file, not a VP3, a non-existent VP3 project file. So this is going to be a stitch file. Now what I want to do, I'm going to be able to say, well, where do you want to save these designs? Well, I'm going to still, because they're going to go into a special folder where I can put things, I'm going to come over to here, and I'm moving my insertion point, and I'm going to call it Tim's, and we cannot put an apostrophe in there, Tim's flower stalk. And this last part that says underscore stitches, I'll show you in another lesson later how we can make that the default word. If you try this out in your software now without following the modification that I need to tell you about, this will say not stitches, but exported. And I like to use the word stitches so that it's a constant reminder to me that this is a stitch file and not a project file of any kind. So now that I've got that set up, what I need to do is put this in a folder that I would recognize as being something that I did with mySewnet. And I'm going to do that by coming down here and clicking on the data files, my D drive. And when I come down here and I want to create a folder called mySewnet stitches. So I'm going to come up here to the very top of this piece of hardware. I'm going to left click on the D drive and then right click and come down to here to new and call it new folder. And you see it has named it new folder because alphabetically that's where it falls. It just happens to fall after mySewnet videos. So new folder. So I'm going to right click on it, come to rename, left click on that, it says new folder. I'm going to type in mySewnet embroidery stitch files and I'll hit enter. The rename takes place and now it gets moved up to here. Let's do that again because I like to sort these embroidery designs out. Many people contact me and say, how do you keep track of your designs? Well, I want a new folder. And see, it says new folder right there. But that new folder is going to be inside of mySewnet embroidery stitch files. And I'm going to call it flowers. And I'll hit enter. So that I'll know all my flowers will be there, and I'll right click here and I'm click new folder, and this one I'm going to name cats and dogs, and hit enter. So that I know immediately maybe the next design I have in mind is going to have a cat or dog in it. So I'm going to put it into flowers, and I click on that to select it, and notice up here at the top it says flowers. Here's the name, flower stalk stitches, and I'm going to also click here twice so that I can move my insert point with my arrow keys on my keyboard, and I'm going to call it Tim's flower stalk stitches. This is in case my wife comes and uses this computer and wants to call her design Carol's flower stalk stitches. And I'll click export, and it's done. It's in the computer and ready to use and stitch out. Now, some of the things we went over here, you need to understand about, like what's the difference between the project file and the stitch file. Well, I want to move these flowers down here, and I want to add another design in here. So I'm going to hit File and Insert. Now, Insert comes up and it says, okay, let's see, what do you want to add in here? I'm going to go in here to my Documents folder, go down to Premiere Plus 2. I'm going to go down to Samples because we have many, many more samples here. And I want to see if I have any hearts in here any place. I'll click on People, and I'll scroll down here. And maybe I've decided that I want to go ahead and use Cupid here, or this cherub with a heart. I'll double click to open it. And now you can see the flowers are still there. I'll click here and drag the Cupid around a little bit. And I want to make the flower a little bit smaller. I want to make Cupid a little bit smaller. So I'll click here on the Resize tool. And we now have blue handles around the corners of the resize. I'll hold the Control key down on my screen and try and make this smaller or larger. I'm going to move it over here. I'll take the flower and I'll make that a little bit smaller. And in order to maintain what's called the aspect ratio of the design, if you hold the Shift key down and I make it smaller and larger, you see it maintains the ratio of the width to the height. If I don't hold the Control key down, or the Shift key down, but hold Control down, then it will change and get wide or tall or skinny, and I don't want that. So what I do if I make a mistake like that, I'll do something like this, which is completely wrong, and then I'll hold Control down and tap the Z key, and I can make it back to the same aspect ratio that originally had. But I only have this selected. If I select here, you see this is in resize mode. And resize mode, what resize mode does is when we change the size of it, you see the design is 8,106 stitches. If I resize this and make it smaller and release my mouse button, you see now the size, the number of stitches is smaller because this design has to cover fewer square inches or millimeters. I'm going to hit Control Z to resize that back to where it was. Now you can also see here that if I want to turn resize off, then I can click on this and I have to turn it off separately than this. Neither one of these is in resize mode right now. And I could put them both in resize mode and then resize this and then resize this and so forth. If you do not resize, if you say, well, I just want to change the size of this. Well, it's 9,535 millimeters, or I mean stitches rather. If I hold the Shift key down and change this and make it very small, notice that the number of stitches is still very much the same. It's still the same. And if I come down here to the zoom tool down here and click on that, and then move up here and left click and drag to zoom very close to this, you can see you almost can't make out the details of the face because we still have 9,535 stitches in an area that's much, much smaller. I'll click here on zoom to fit to go back to see the whole hoop. I'll hit Control and Z to make it this large again. And then I'll click here to zoom to rectangle. And you can see that the face is much more distinct. We can see the pupils of the eyes, the eyebrows, or the eyelashes, the eyebrows, and so forth, the mouth, this thing that defines the nose, and so forth. And that's the difference between scaling and resizing. If you ever forget which is which, you see, I want to click on resize here, but look, I can't click on it. Well, the reason I can't click on it is because nothing on the screen is selected. Okay, this design is not selected, this is not selected. I can tell it's not selected because there are no threads shown over here in the design panel. As soon as I click on it, you see here are the thread colors for the little angel. And if I click here on the flowers, there are the thread colors for the flowers. If I want to select all of them or more of them, I can click here on select all, and you see now everything is selected and all the thread colors are selected. And they're in what's called a program group. That's what the meaning of these orange handles are around the outside. And it says right up here that it's a group. Okay, it says it's a group. If I click on group, then the handles around the outside stay orange, but instead of dashes, they're a solid line. If I hit Control Z, it ungroups everything, and we're back to these separate designs. Now, let's talk for a minute here about the film strip. It used to be that if you had these designs close to each other like this, and you said, I want to click on and select the flower here. Well, you must be able to see the flower, so you need to click here to select the flower, and click here to select the angel. But what if they were very close to each other like this, and you said, well, I want to click on the the flower here, and you say, well, I'll click on this big part of the leaf there, that's it. And you say, wait a minute, hold on a second, darn it, Control Z. I've selected the angel here. Well, if a little piece of the flower is sticking out and you click like that, you see now the selection was made a little bit larger, and now I can move the flower part. Okay? But now we don't have to do that. Here in the film strip, if you say, I want to select the flower, you just click on the film strip and we've selected the flower. You want to select the angel. You just click there on the angel and you've selected the angel. This film strip, believe me, is absolutely your best friend in this entire piece of software and in this module as well. Now suppose you look at this and you say, I'd like the angel to look like it's behind the flower like this and is peeking over the flower. How can I do that so that the angel stitches out first, then the flower stitches on top of the angel? Well, what you can do is over here on the film strip, you can left click and hold on the angel. And as I start to move the angel, you see there's a small, thin gray bar right above the angel. And that indicates the start of that design. If I move this up a little more, you see the gray bar is now all the way up here at the top. Now I'm going to let go of my mouse button, and you see now the angel is behind the flower. And now I can click on the angel and move it around like this, and then click over here so that I can just basically see the design. Or use this tool, which of course is exclusive to Viking and FOF software, which we're using here in mySewnet, is the Life View Design tool. And when I click on that, I can now left click and move the design around, and you can see the light glinting off the face and shoulders of the angel. Okay? You can move that back and forth, and you can zoom in on it. You can move your mouse wheel, scroll forward to zoom in and backwards to zoom out. Or you can see here at the bottom, this says, this is 100% zoom, meaning that when we stitch this out, this is how large the design's going to be. So if you had a garment you wanted to stitch it out on, you could hold it up close to your monitor, and you could see how large or small that this garment's going to be. And it's a fantastic tool. Or you could slide this, left click on this and slide it to the left and move back away. You see there's 50% size. Or all the way over to the right and get really close. And if you said, I want to get into the face of the angel, see what it looks like. These two arrows here assist you. You see, if you move this around, it tilts the design. Or if you click here, it moves the design around so that you can move in on the angel's face here and say, okay, yeah, I like that. Now, when you're done, you can click on Cancel, and that just closes down the Life View design here. Now, this design right now, is it a VP4 project file or a VP4 stitch file? Well, I'm going to leave it as a VP4 project file. And the reason why is because I may feel like I think I might want to put some lettering on this, or I might want to tilt the flower a little more. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I have to go right now. Well, then what you do is you come over here and you click on File, and you come down, and we click on Save As. Never, ever click on Save. Never. We click on Save As. And I've got a folder out specifically for projects. And I'm going to call this one not Flower Stalk, because that's the name of this design. Flower Stalk. I don't want to call it Flower Stalk. And I'm doing a Save As. That means I want to make up a new name. Well, it says Flower Stalk. Well, I'm just going to start to type. Tim's anniversary for Carol. And then I'm going to type in V like version and 01. And notice that it doesn't say anything about putting the word stitches in here, because this is a project file. And I'll click on Save. And that's over with. So now let's say I shut down the software and I say, okay, tomorrow it's another day. Let me come back. I want to get back to work on that design with the little angel and with the flower. And look, here it is right here. Tim's anniversary for Carol version 1. So I'll click on that. Here it is. Wow. And it's it's a what we like to call a pseudo or fake group. See, it has dashed lines around it. If I left click outside of those lines, that disappears, and these are now separate designs again. So that if I say, I think I want to move the angel, I want to select the angel there. I want to move it over like this, or something. Or wait a minute, let me move the flower. I think what I'm going to do with the flower is I'm going to rotate it a little like this. And now I want to click on the angel, and I'm going to move it over like this. Yeah, I think I like this a little bit better. Let me go back to the flower again, but it might be hard to pick the flower. I'll just use my best friend here, the film strip, move the flower like that. I'll move it up a little bit like this. I might even say, let's get into resize mode. I'm going to choose the flower again. I'm going to go to resize mode. I'm going to hold shift down, and I'm going to make the flower a little bit smaller. I have the 4 crosshairs, so I can move it up like this a little. And I feel like I'm done. This is what I wanted to do. I'm going to come over here and say select all. So everything is selected. And now what I'm going to do, I want to center this in the hoop. Well, sure enough, there's a tool right here. It says center in hoop. And I can tell it'll be centered because you see right here, when I select all, you'll see the center of rotation tool. Select all. There's the center of rotation tool. I'll say center in hoop. It moves up and to the right, and it's perfect. Okay. Now this is exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit File. Now I want to save the embroidery design. Do I want to do a save as? No. I want to save the embroidery design. I want to export. I'm going to export this because I want to stitch it out on my Baby Lock Valiant 10 needle sewing machines. So I'll click here. Here are all the options. Remove overlap is chosen. Well, because these stitches are overlapping each other, then yes, I do want to remove overlap. Do a color sort for me and optimize the stitch length. Here is the hoop that is suggested. Here is the file version that I can use, version 11, for this machine because it's the current top-of-the-line machine. I don't need to flip the design. I don't need to change the hoop. It's already chosen the smallest hoop that I can use. I'll click OK. And it says, okay, where are we going to put this? And here's where it wants to try to put it in mySewnet embroidery stitch files, flowers. I need another folder in place of flowers. So I'll click down here. I'm going to go down to embroidery stitch files, mySewnet embroidery stitch files. I'll click here. I don't have one for, say, family gifts. So I'll left click to select mySewnet embroidery stitch files. I'll right click, new folder. It's the only new thing I can do. And I'm going to call this Family Gift Designs. Notice they're put in alphabetical order. I'll click on Family Gift Designs. I already have my name there with stitches in it. and I'll hit export, and that's it. It's saved, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to leave. Now, if you say, wait a minute. You kept talking about what a wonderful thing this film strip is. Can we move the you know, angel to the front of the design? Well, let me see. I'll click on this. I'll drag it down there, and there it is. But this is still a project file, because without a project file, I couldn't move that around. If I went and got the design file, then this would all be combined, all kind of mishmashed into one thing. And the stitches that were removed in the front of the angel here, underneath of this leaf, those stitches would be missing. And so this is a project file. And that's something that's very, very handy to have and very, very handy to know about. Now, the final thing that I wanted to go over with you here, which is something we need to go over with at the very beginning, is here in File, in the File tab, there is a Preferences tool. We left-click on Preferences, and it says, do you want me to automatically remove overlap when combining embroideries? Either yes, as it's checked now, or no, turn that off. I always leave that on, because I could always turn it off and re-export the design again, or move the pieces around so that they don't overlap. Do you want me to check the spelling for you, for your lettering? Well, who wants to do a design and it says Happy Mother's Day, and Mothers is spelled M-U-T-H-E-R-S. And you stitch it out and you waste all that time and all those threads and everything else. Or worst of all, you don't even notice it and you give it to Mother and she looks at it and says, gee, maybe I should have paid for a more expensive school for you to go to so you could learn how to spell. Pretty embarrassing. Check spelling. There is absolutely no reason to turn that off. We've recommended time and again to remove this so that you can't say, just willy-nilly just go in and say, yeah, turn that off. I don't want to be bothered with that. No, you leave it on all the time. What language do you want to use for spelling? Well, look here. These are the different languages you can use. Now, English UK and English US, English is English, isn't it? Well, in English UK, if I said, hey, that's a nice car, I like your shiny hood, and I should use the word bonnet because that's what in UK they call the hood of a car. Well, it's not going to correct that. But if I say, I love the theater, well, in English they spell it TH. English UK, the last two letters are RE, like theatre. And of course, in English US, it's THEATER. And so that's the difference between English UK and English US. Now, apply my settings for applique piece margin, overriding the initial settings for lettering, super designs, frames, and flourishes. These are set and turned on and turned off and modified here. And so this is something that we'll discuss when we cover applique piecing and so forth. You will not see demo mode in your software, whether it's the platinum, the silver, or the basic. Demo mode is a special feature that is set in the software that the people that are on the test and evaluation committee, such as myself, are, so that I could click on SewNet Basic. It would only show the SewNet Basic tools as being active. SewNet Silver, same thing there. SewNet Platinum, of course, it shows them all. Now, Configure, if you click on Configure, the Configure dialog will open. And when the configure dialog opens, this is all of the information that's in the configure module. This is the same configure module that you would see if you opened configure from the desktop. Here in export, down here at the bottom it says export file name. If you look at this in your software, it probably says that exported. But you can come in here and highlight this, and I put the underscore key, which is the shift and the key next to the number 0, the underscore key, and make sure that this is checked. If this is not checked, then this will not happen. So make sure this is checked. And except for this, these are the default settings that are here. And I changed something else. I changed my background color. I like this light blue. And I like this knit for the texture. I like the grid to be black so that the grid here is definitely darker. The screen layout for styles. Okay, we have different styles that you can get for these colors for the back. I like blue, but you can change them to whatever you want. You can change them to green, for example. But I like a blue. The measurement, you want to get a tool like a dark or a metal ruler that you can lay across here and measure the width of this, and then type in whatever the value is. That synchronizes the screen. When the screen says it's at 100% zoom and it's 30 millimeters or 80 millimeters or 85 millimeters, it zooms into that. And then this is where, for your cutout, applique, or background, you can set the colors and the setting here. Okay, well, I hope that everyone learned something here in this lesson. Those who are Train Your Way members can come back and watch it as often or as many times as you want. And we'll be coming up with the next lesson, and each lesson will get more complex and delve into more details about the software.